with AutoSuccess magazine. I'd really like to thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Today, we are going to be talking about recon centers. And if you saw any of the Facebook Lives or the posts or anything else that we had up, all over the place, emails, I'm sure you all got touched in some way to find this. And I've got an absolutely all-star group of guests today to share ideas with you on recon centers. Our title today is Centralized Recon. Anyone can have it. Find out how. Reconditioning. Is yours a cost center or a revenue generator? And judging by the number of people that have registered for this webinar, this topic must be hot. We've got an audience larger than we've had in quite some time today. I'd really like to thank you all for coming out. Please share with us, how you feel that it went. You can email me, or you can go to AutoSuccess Webinars. It's a group on Facebook. Now, if you haven't joined that group yet, I'd like to invite you to join it. Essentially, it's just like any other group on Facebook, but in this group, it has a purpose. The purpose is for you to interact with AutoSuccess by recommending people you'd love to see on a webinar, topics you'd love to see covered. But more importantly, it gives you an opportunity to interact with each other. Everybody on this phone call today has a desire to do recon better than what they're doing right now, and you're all going to leave with a whole heck of a lot of good ideas. But as with any new thing, you're going to experience successes and failures along the way. And I invite you to utilize that group to share with each other those. Maybe you can learn and avoid a mistake someone else made. Maybe you can piggyback off an idea somebody else had and achieve success faster. Now, one more thing before we get started today. For those of you that are new to GoToWebinar, and with the audience's size, I imagine we've got to have some people that have not done this before. Today, when you want to ask a question, if you're on a laptop, tablet, or a PC, there's a bar on the right side of your screen. Near the bottom, it says questions. Hit the plus sign, type in the question, and please do that throughout the webinar. We'll get to the questions at the end, but type them in as we go. That way, we've got some great ones, when we get to the end. Now, for those of you that are on if you're on a smartphone, on an Apple or an Android, depending on the manufacturer, it works a little differently. You either have a picture frame around your screen, or you have a header or footer. Somewhere on that will be a question mark. You click that, type in your question, and also, again, depending on the device, most devices will let you swipe to go back to the webinar. Other devices I've seen, you actually have to click on an icon that kind of looks like a desktop monitor or a flat screen TV. So, they're all a little bit different, but that's essentially how they work. If you do get kicked out, the link that you have will get you right back in. With that, I'd like to introduce today. I have a co-host, Anthony Greenalagh from Rapid Recon. He actually just recently has left a Centralized Recon Center, so he has a whole heck of a lot of experience. And then our other guests today, we have Steve Gerhartz from Passport Auto Group, Jared Reichert from Reichert Automotive, Anthony Martinez from Greenway Dodge, Gary Radeke and Derek Avery from McDonald Automotive, and Jasen Rice from, I have Lot Party. It's Lot Pops, not Lot Party. But those are
Lot Party's the show. That's good. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right.
You're good.
Well, hey, Anthony, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience, in the dealership and with Rapid Recon, and let's get rolling.
All right, great. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Hey, you sound great.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anthony Greenalagh. To give you a little history, I spent the last 24 years in a dealership, all in fixed operations, and all for the same dealer. I've held multiple positions within that organization, parts and service management, specifically collision on the service side. In that store, I implemented a cosmetic reconditioning platform and brought the entire reconditioning process to one central location. Everything from mechanical, detail, and all of the cosmetic reconditioning was done prior to the vehicle going to the retail lot. I've certainly seen the benefits of Centralized Recon and what it can do for your time to market. So we at Rapid Recon thought we'd put together a panel of some of the best performing dealers in the country and see if we could share some of that information with the industry and educate some people. Before I turn this over to the panel, I'd like to take a minute to talk about Centralized Recon and really explain what it is and give you a few different examples of what we see from Rapid Recon in the industry pertaining to the different levels of layout. When you centralize something, you concentrate it under one single authority. We see dealers that will intentionally recondition their vehicles off-site to eliminate the distractions of the retail business on recon, and vice versa, their recon business on retail. With that said, there's many dealers that are successful reconditioning their vehicles on site, but the key here is that they manage their recon as if it's its own entity. The beauty is, though, is that everybody can have centralized recon because it's more about how you manage it and a lot less about where you manage it. As a best practice, this is done by using an inventory manager, or also known in the industry as a chaser. Now, a chaser is someone who chases a vehicle through the recon process. They should have good mechanical knowledge and have the ability to communicate openly between departments. In most stores where this is implemented, the chaser works directly for the used car department and would be viewed as a primary customer of the fixed departments or vendors. For those of you who have experience in the collision industry, you'll know it's not uncommon for an insurance carrier to put their own representative directly in a high-volume shop to oversee the production, the quality, and the general management of the repairs. This is very similar to that. Well, they work directly for the used car department, these chasers, and they spend most of their time in service departments. Their primary focus, though, is to keep that car moving. They also need to have a certain level of approval authority from the used car manager or the variable department, and enough mechanical knowledge to keep the honest people honest, right? Now, we see a few different platforms with this. We see centralized stores where mechanical and detail work is all that's done in-house, and all of the cosmetic is left up to vendors. But when it's successful with the chaser, even the sublet work is still under the supervision of the chaser. And we see centralized stores where all of the mechanical work and the cosmetic work, short any body repair that requires paint, is done in one location. And the body work is sublet to an outside vendor. But again, the body work still falls under the supervision of the chaser. Kind of see where I'm going with this. And then we see centralized stores where 100% of the reconditioning is internalized and done under one roof. This generally requires a body shop that's capable of painting within, you got EPA guidelines and paint booths and all kinds of stuff you need to deal with there. But if you're lucky enough to have a facility like that, then you can bring all of your reconditioning under one roof and handle everything from start to finish. But with every level of internalization, we see a significant decrease in sensory-ready time to market. And by sensory-ready, I mean touch, sight, and smell. We talk a lot about frontline ready, but I don't think the industry focuses now enough on sensory ready, because that smell will kill a deal faster than you can say smell, right? Cosmetic reconditioning is predominantly important to what demographic, right? Women. And what does the husband say when they have somebody down test driving that car? Let me call my wife and have her come look at it. These people, they won't pull a dipstick, but they can pick up a bumper scuff and a rock chip a mile away. And you think about it, you can park a car on a vehicle front line, but if it's damaged, you're probably going to give up a turn. Plus, it's no secret that repairing that damage after the fact is far more expensive than fixing it before, simply because the customer's expectations are so much higher. You end up discounting the car because it's damaged, so the customer's throwing around words like Carfax and depreciation and never going to be the same, so you give them a price break, and then you end up fixing the deal anyway. How often does it happen to you guys? I've seen it quite a bit. In my store, or at least the store where I worked, my goal was to capture all of the cosmetic work from PDR, windshield chip repair, interior repair, light refinish work, and also some medium to heavy body work. I took a tech, I put him on an airplane, I flew him to California for 2 weeks and had him trained. I invested $11,000 for training. It came with tools for interior repair, PDR, windshield, chip repair, and guess what? He got back, and the interior repair was not lucrative. It wasn't really profitable because there was just so little of it. But it was necessary to add it and keep it in the portfolio, because the ultimate goal here wasn't just to add additional revenue to the dealership. I mean, clearly that's part of the goal, but the ultimate goal was to get the repair done quickly. Not pick and choose the gravy work and save the rest for the vendors, right? Get the car to the front line and get it done within a 3 to 5 day turn. Now, this wasn't a huge store. We averaged 119 vehicles through reconditioning per month, and about exactly 69 of those needed some kind of cosmetic reconditioning. And of those vehicles, we averaged $241 per vehicle in cosmetic reconditioning cost. After labor, material, tool costs, we added $109,000 annually to our P&L, And that's all money that we were already spending with outside vendors. So, you know, the only other investment that was there was time and $11,000 in training, which was minimal compared to the return. And by the way, that didn't include any of the mechanical or parts or anything from detail that we were already capturing from other departments there at that store. But the key here was having those vehicles sensory ready when they hit the lot. And you know, you've got 21 days from acquisition to sell the vehicle before your buying decision starts to erode. You know, if you're lucky to get 2 turns on that vehicle, and if it's not sensory ready, you'll not only give up your turn, you're probably going to give up a customer. Anyway, moving on. As I mentioned earlier, we put together a panel of some of the most successful dealers in the country when it comes to reconditioning. They're here to speak about some of their best practices, and I would like to open this up to a little Q&A to them. So we'll get started here with Jasen. So Jasen, you're with Lot Pop. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, you see a lot of dealers healthy and probably more unhealthy, hopefully healthy later. What are some of the behaviors you see where dealers fall short in reconditioning?
Well, sometimes a lot of it's just the importance of it and understanding the impact that it really makes on your profitability of the dealership. I know they see it as important, but their focus usually doesn't put it as top priority. And I mean, if you don't mind, I could dig a little bit deeper in, you know, an analogy or an example of what I mean by that.
Sure. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
We do a lot of, I spent 8 years with vAuto, 8 years on the retailing, but 8 years with vAuto, and seen 1,000 dealerships, and you know, looking at best practices. And currently with Lot Pop, you know, the last 3 years, we help dealerships improve used car operations. And what I see time and time again with all these dealerships that continue to struggle to make gross and volume, it comes to what percentage of their inventory is selling fresh and what percentage is age. So the dealerships top performers will push out 60 to 70% of their sales in the first 30 days. So our goal with our company is to try to get dealers there. And the dealers that don't hit that goal, but have clean inventory, look good on paper, again, look good on the surface, in their software system, there's little age, they look good, but profitability is not maximized. It came down to not selling enough 0 to 30, which then goes into turnaround time. So again, I can get a lot of dealerships looking good on paper. You could do it yourself, cleaning up your inventory, making that inventory stand tall. And my analogy is, you know, I thought we were kind of like having a personal trainer, our services, right? We're there every week with you doing review calls and training you and building muscle. But what I realized, we're more of a dietitian. We just make you look good. We can have you lose weight, but you might not be mass muscle type 100% fitness person. And I realized it was that turnaround time that makes that dealership, you know, the beast, the one that is getting a holy grail of gross and volume. You can make your inventory look good, and on paper, again, maybe look good, but to really maximize gross you really need to get that turnaround time down to within less than 5 days, but 2 to 3 days. And the dealerships that do that and get that turnaround time are most successful dealers, pushing 60, 70% fresh. The only way they can do that is that turnaround time, and that's when you get the both holy grail of gross and volume. So my struggles with vAuto, helping dealerships turn around their inventory, but still can struggle with gross, it always came back to, well, how fast, you know, we can't sell a car till day 20 because, and day 30 and day 40, because it took 14, 15 days to get it through service, and they treat it like it's day one. And so that car is always 2 weeks off, and it's bleeding through. So that recon's huge. And then the best practices, the dealers I see, going back to your point, have a centralized, you know, he mentioned Lot Party. That actually happens to be a weekly show that I do on Auto Dealer Live. But episode 7, a while back, I interviewed a director that handles reconditioning for a dealer group that had a 4-day turnaround time. And you can watch that if you look it up again, Lot Party. But he goes over, he's responsible for the whole department, but he has 2 dedicated parts people, 4 dedicated detail people, 4 dedicated mechanics. These aren't mechanics that are, you know, filling in their schedule with recon work or, you know, used cars. That's all these people do, both parts, detail, service, and then they have that guy that's responsible for it all. And again, those are the stores that can have that 3 to 5 day turnaround time. But it's a lot of effort, and you need that staff there to do it.
So you're attributing a lot of that success to dedicated individuals rather than keeping that business in your, say, in your retail portfolio, separating it out.
Yes, yes, and because again, a lot of stores, the customer comes before the used car department, surprisingly or not. So when they got customer pay coming in, and that car gets pushed off because they got customers waiting for stuff, and that turnaround, that delay happens. Again, it's hard to look at that for them to understand that that's costing them more money in the long run. And,
okay.
And again, it comes into staffing, and it's expense. Like you said, you spent 11 grand to go spend some guy on training, but it became profitability down the road because you became more efficient in that department. And even as these dealers see that as an expense, I can't afford to add that person, or it's going to cost me more money. In the long run, you're going to get it back, because for every, if you can shave 2 days off of your turnaround time, if your turnaround time is 9 days and you just shave it to 7, or 11 days and just shave it to 9, that's 2 days in a month that you've saved on turnaround time. Well, there's 12 months in a year. That's 24 days. And there's 24 working days in a month. So essentially, if you sell 100 cars a month, you just added another year to your calendar, or another month to your calendar. So if you sell 100 cars a month, at the end of the year, you could end up with 100 more retail units. Again, at $2 grand a copy, front and back, F&I opportunities, and trade-ins and so forth, and service property.
And one thing you did mention was holding cost, right? You're adding 24
Correct, yeah.
days a year.
Exactly. And, one of my guys that worked for me, the GM, he was telling me, he used to tell his stores that a lot of his store was closed on Sundays, but that holding cost doesn't go away. If it costs me 20 bucks or 40 bucks a day to carry 100 cars, that $4 grand, that costs me on a Sunday, even though when my door's closed, and I can't even sell a car. So that expense is floating out there, but guys don't see it in their pay plan. They don't see it as managers. As a used car manager moving my inventory, I just got off the phone with one of my dealers, and he's managing the inventory by pay plan, by his pack and so forth. But that holding cost, they don't see that. They make $1 grand. You make $1 grand on a 40-day-old car, but it costs you $1,200 to hold it. At 30 bucks a day, it costs you $1,200 to hold that car there. You really lost 200 bucks. They don't see that in the pay plan. They see they made $1 grand on a 40-day car, right? But
all right.
The profitability of the dealership, they lost 200.
Yeah. Great. That's great. Good information. So what we'll do, Jason, is if you can hang out with us, we're going to run through and talk to a few more people, and then we're going to open this up to some Q&A afterwards. So I'm sure somebody might have some questions for you there.
Okay,
Steve, Mr. Gerhartz, are you around?
I'm here.
Great. So Steve, you run a large MSO or a multi-store operation. Would you mind talking about some of the challenges that you face with multiple stores and how your reconditioning team has overcome them?
Sure. The group that I work with has 9 stores, and 5 of them are located on basically the same footprint of land. It's probably 20 acres. Something like that, maybe a little less. 3 are across, I'm in the DC market, so 3 are in Northern Virginia, 5 are in Southern Maryland, right across the river, and then 1's by itself up in Montgomery County. And the Recon Center that we set up several years ago at the 5-store group, we did it in conjunction with a dent wizard, and turned over the entire process to them. And the dealer's thinking at the time was he wanted his managers to be involved in customer interaction and take the reconditioning piece away, and just outsource it and manage it that way. And it worked pretty well for the initial period of time. They've subsequently gone and they pulled it back in-house for a couple of different reasons. But one of the struggles that we had when we were trying to get these 5 stores all working at the same, firing on all cylinders, was that the mistake we made in the beginning was trying to dictate the processes and the way the processes were set up and the way the work flowed. And what we learned over time was that each store is going to be somewhat, it's going to have its own idiosyncrasies or blips or whatever you want to call them it would cause them to do things a little bit differently. Each store has, in some senses, its own personality. So the one-size-fit-all didn't really work. Now, we did use Rapid Recon to kind of centralize everything, just the information flow, but how each store actually managed its process was really kind of left up to them to work through. And over time, that's worked out well.
Good. Great. All right, and if you'll hang around too, that would be wonderful.
Sure.
So next on my list is Jared Reichert. Jared, are you there?
I'm here. Hey, I was wondering, is there a time limit at which I can talk? Because I could give you the start, the middle, the end. I mean, I can talk all day. You just kind of give me a time cap.
You know what? Why don't you, if you could spend 5 to 8 minutes, and if you go over that, I think you're going to be okay.
I introduce myself. My name is Jared Reichert. I'm the Fixed Operations Director at Reichert Automotive now. Sitting in my office with me is Ralph Sands. He's our Reconditioning Director. But Ralph was with me the whole time in which we started. So we are the #1 used car franchise dealer in the United States of America in 2015. And we are located in Columbus, Ohio on 67 acres with 6 manufacturers and 1 centralized used car department and 1 centralized reconditioning center. In 2012, I took over the reconditioning center with Ralph, and we had a building with 5 technicians and 5 detailers and 1 parts guy. Currently, we have 18 technicians dedicated to nothing but reconditioning, 8 detailers, and 2 used car parts counter people. Now, when we first took it over, I talked with our parts counter person. I said, you are the Tom Brady that's going to make this work. Our parts counter people are spectacular. They're dedicated to nobody but used cars, and they concentrate on getting the fastest part, the part that gets here the fastest. They're not going to nickel and dime us as far as, well, this part's like $5 cheaper, but I can get it 3 days from now. I'd rather spend an extra $5, $50 to get the parts there faster. Some of the things that we implemented is we explained to everybody the culture, and with all of our technicians, all of our detailers, all of our dent and touch-up, all the parts people, is the importance of getting a car to the front line. And we explained to them the goal is 3-day tournament, and when they hit the goal of the 3-day tournament, which they have in the past 4 years a couple of times, you know, we reward them by, you know, just off-site parties and enjoying ourselves. Some of the things that we do differently is we're not a traditional 5-day-a-week, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 technicians, detailers. That's what they work. We implemented a 3-day work week with all of our technicians and our detailers simply because we didn't have enough space. We needed more technicians. We had a certain amount of bays, and we maximized the amount of time that we could possibly be open, specifically Saturdays, to support the sales department. So what we did is we have every one of our technicians, either they work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, as well as detailers, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They work from 7 a.m. till 8 p.m. Now I'm going to rehash back to what I said about Saturdays. How many times does the used car department have a customer on a car, a check engine light, a tire light, something pops up on the busiest day, and they say, I'll have service look at it for you on Monday. I'll get back with you then. And the customer says, sure, I'll come back. You never see that customer. You have to take advantage of when they're there. So they're more of support on Saturdays, but they're still turning hours, turning cars onto the to the used car department on Saturday, as well as being support for the used car department salespeople, because they know we've implemented the more cars that they turn faster, the faster we're going to sell them, and the more work is going to come. And luckily, I haven't been called a liar yet, so it's actually been a pretty good relationship with all of our technicians as well as our detailers in the used car department. Last year, we had 800 used cars in a month, 3 or 4 times. Another thing that we do a little bit differently is we don't do the traditional each car stands on its own 2 feet. We have a bucket-based pricing system, so each vehicle from 0 to 20,000 miles has $600 put on it with the mechanical service as well as the dent, touch-up, and detail. There's a lot of advantages to this, and then 20 to 40, 40 to 60, or 40 to 80, and then 80,000 plus. There's advantages to this. A customer sees a car online, the salesperson says, well, I'll call you when it's ready and we'll sign you up. No, when they're here, We know what's going to be in the car. We know what the cost is. We can work a deal and sell the car before it's actually to the lot. Customers love it. They get a fresh piece of inventory. You get a car deal. The customer's happy. You can't lose. But to wait until everything's posted on the RO and on the vehicle for the vehicle cost, I mean, it's insanity. We're in the age of speed. It's all about speed to the front line, and how can we make it more simple? As we keep moving, we have the complete understanding that unless we have 21 days to make a profit on a used car. 21 days. Once day 21 hits, we're selling it at either break even or we're losing money. So our used car department currently has, I think, 1,000 used cars on the lot. And right now we have, I think, 120 of them that are over 60 days old. It's about turning them fast. Now we do between 800 and 1,000 ROs each month in our reconditioning center with 18 techs, 8 detailers, and 2 dent and touch-up. The greatest part about it is we have our reconditioning center literally 100 feet from our photo lab. That is the front line. So when it's done with detail through the reconditioning center, it goes directly online with all the photos on the turntable, and from that point on, we consider it's already on the front line, front lot. It's on the internet. That's all that matters. I guess in an abbreviated point of time, I guess where it starts is we have a meeting every week, every Tuesday, between the general sales manager of used cars, the reconditioning director, and the guy that runs our intake lab, the guys that are buying the vehicles, and we call it the rapid recon meeting because we all sit and talk. The buyers are there because why? The reconditioning manager can say, hey, we've been seeing a lot of things going wrong with this specific vehicle. Don't buy those at the auction. And the general sales manager says, hey, you guys are either doing a very good job, or this is what we need to get back on, or this is what we need to get better at. And it's not a finger-pointing session more than it is, how can we get better, and how can I help you do a better job? When we started working as a team on all aspects of it, instead of operating as a silo, as a service department silo, as a parts department silo, as a used car department silo, we have become successful because we all have an open line of communication and we don't point fingers. So I guess I think that was close to 5 to 8 minutes. I mean, is there anything else you would like me to talk about?
You know, I have one question for you, and it's probably going to come up in the Q&A. But you sounds like you pack a car based on the age of a vehicle. Depends on the size of the pack, and I would imagine that the older the cars get, the pack gets higher. Is that safe to assume?
Actually, it has nothing to do with the age of the vehicle. So we base it off of the mileage of the vehicle. So if it has 0 to 20,000 miles, we just put $600 on it as far as the cost of what it costs to recondition the vehicle. If it has 20 to 40,000 miles, we put $925. And from 40 to 80,000 miles, we have $1,200 attached to it on the cost of the vehicle as the reconditioning, the service and parts bill that you normally see on it. And then from 80,000 miles plus, we have $1,500. And what you'll find is, okay.
My question was going to be and you're probably going to answer it for me right now, but at the end, do you true that pack up at the end of the month? And how often do you have money left over versus how much money are you in the, how many times you're in the red on that?
So basically, it's a giant credit and debit account. So, whether or not it took us $600 to fix the car, now that's what reconditioning as far as service, the parts attached to it, and the detailed dent and touch-up. Whether we have $650 in it or $550 in it, we still keep it at $600 as the true cost of the reconditioning on that vehicle. Say there's a credit of $50. It goes off into a separate account, and we accrue that account either positively or negatively. Either it could be a debt or a credit at the end of the month, and then we split. If we're in the hole, as we say, $12,000, used car splits the $12,000 between the service department and the used car department. The reason why we do primarily what we find is we spend less on the vehicles that have less mileage, just by case. So we traditionally, on anything up to 80,000 miles, we spend less than what the attached dollar amount is on that vehicle. But what it does is it creates a credit for us to spend more money on that secondary vehicle that has 150,000 miles, that has an ACV of say $6,000 or $7,000, and it needs $3,000 worth of work. Well, you can't sell it secondary because you're past. You can't get the lending or the bank to lend that amount of money. It just has a $1,500 attached to that secondary higher mileage vehicle. You're not reconditioning yourself out of the vehicle to sell. Does that kind of make sense?
It does. Let's do a whole bunch of other questions, but I'm under a timetable, so we'll chat a little bit more another time. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to go ahead and launch our first poll.
Okay.
Everybody who's on this call, please take a look at the poll that just came up and answer that, please. And we can continue to talk as people answer this, but you know, we're going to ask a few questions during this webinar in order to kind of gauge where a lot of our audience is. So go ahead and answer that question. As it looks right now, we're at 81% yes, 19% no. Let's see, it's sticking right around 80-20 with 0 saying I sublet my mechanical work. So it looks like we've got about 80% yes and 20% no, everybody. Great. I'm going to go ahead and close this poll, and we'll go on to our next speaker.
All right. Anthony, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Great name, by the way. Great name. Love your parents.
I agree. Same to you.
All right. So your organization consistently runs between the 3 and 5 day mark. And that includes cosmetic. And you average 350 vehicles a month. So it's not small by any means.
Correct.
Would you mind talking a little bit about what practices cause you to stay in that time to market? And by the way, I said consistently, and I mean it. Like, you are consistently in there. It's not the roller coaster. So I'm real interested to hear what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I actually have a little bit different background than the rest of our presenters. I'm fairly new to the car industry, under 5 years, and my background is military and quality control. So I've spent some time in Six Sigma and lean manufacturing. So that's what the owners were interested in applying to this reconditioning center. The advantage I had and have is that the owners and general managers completely understand the relevance to cycle time, the relevance to low holding costs, and centralized reconditioning with dedicated personnel. The problem they were trying to solve is, okay, with our volume of 650 to 700 used, and then also the new cars with the PDIs, et cetera, how can we lower our holding costs and decrease our cycle time? So one of the things that I've been trained in is about problem solving. The true definition of problem is a deviation from a standard. When I arrived, I noticed there weren't a lot of significant standards, and definitely Rapid Recon, the tool they were using, was not being used to its potential. I also noticed a lack of transparency, so sometimes there was a lot more verification and trust issues between the reconditioning department and the used car approving authority. So by laying out a whole bunch of standards and disciplines on how everything is done the same way each time, eliminating deviation, we started to get that trust because they knew that we would uphold our recon standard. I also doubled up on a lot of tasks. As I mentioned before, everyone I have is dedicated. I am fortunate enough to even be located away from the main service building, so I'm in a separate building, which makes my life a lot easier, that I don't have technicians that can be pulled for CP up at service. I have about 50 employees, 14 technicians, 2 new car technicians, 25 detailers, and about an admin staff of 6 plus 2 porters. We are also open up 7 days a week, so much to, forgive me if I'm wrong, I think it was Jared talking about the advantage to being available for that used car sale, that check engine like the tire. He's absolutely right. I mean, sales loves the fact that we're available. And it just took some, different staggered scheduling to make that happen with technicians, similar to what he was explaining. But one of the things we pride ourselves on is doing the same thing to every single car. Now, obviously, the results and the stories are different, but everything is going to be the same. Down to pricing, we actually have menu pricings down to the opcode level. So the used car department, they're used to knowing what a tire change on this type of car would be. Oh, you know, whether what's even down to the, okay, they understand this car has 20-inch tires, that might be a different price. It took a while to get everybody used to that, but there's no lack of transparency to where they don't trust what's going on. No, let me see the car, let me see the car. There was a lot of that going on, and now we've gotten to the point where we use Rapid Recon as a communication tool. We built a template in Rapid Recon using both the notes and the work items to actually make that the estimate, so there's no paper estimate leaving the building. We also use a chaser, like they were talking about in the beginning, and we're always involving him in the Rapid Recon. So one of the ways that we cut down our cycle time is everyone is aware of when that clock starts, down from the porter to the highest paid tech. Every single person understands receive, cleared, green light, go. Every car gets the same process of inspection. We've even doubled up on some inspections, and one example is I actually trained the mechanics to learn how to cosmetically triage and grade a detail. So instead of having two separate inspections and increasing the handoff time in between cosmetic and mechanical to cosmetic, we've now reduced that time. And that is being presented at the same time as a regular estimate. So right then and there, when that used car manager is looking at the car, he knows what he's going to get in the vehicle, what the estimate's going to be, cosmetic and mechanical. And we've broken down different cosmetic stages. You know, we have different triggers for different levels of cost on our side and sale for the detail. Blatant example would be the difference between a purchase unit that might just need a quick little touch-up versus something that's got dog hair, smoke odor, scratch, dent, all that. So they understand that there's going to be different costs because the mechanic triaged it all, even to the point we're drawing on the diagram where the damage is. So there's always that checks and balances for us. I've implemented a lot of QA control, so everything that's done, even a mechanic when done with inspection, the team leader verifies. When a detailer is done with inspection, a shift leader verifies. So we've eliminated a lot of that return, and we had a lot of returns in the beginning, but now cars are getting up there and they're staying up there until sold. So we've increased the return, which dramatically reduced cycle time. There's nothing worse than having a car frontline and kick back in a detail, and you absorb that time on the lot.
All right. So I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I've got two questions for you. So I heard you mention that you menu price most of your stuff, but then you had made mention to your cosmetic having different levels. Do you maybe have 3 or 4 different levels of cosmetic reconditioning that vehicle could fall into, rather than line iteming every single cosmetic item? It might be 100, 200, 300, 400, and then it's.
Yes, exactly. We actually have.
Anthony.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anthony, before you answer that question, I'm going to go ahead and launch another poll that's directly related to this. It's how do you handle your cosmetic reconditioning? And so while Anthony answers this question, please, everyone, take the time to answer this poll. All right, go ahead.
We implemented training standards on different levels of a detail. We have 3 different levels of detail, inside and outside. So your level 1 detail is going to be your inside would be just a vacuum and a wipe down. A level 2 would be some fabric is in there. We're going to pick out the steam machines. There might be some light stain removal. And then level 3 is when you're talking beach sand, dog hair, something that's going to significantly add time to the detailer. On the outside, we use similar triggers. Again, a light car that probably can get away with just a polish because the previous owner maintained it, 1. Buff polished compound, now we're talking 2. Fine scratches that's going to require wet sanding, now it's a stage 3. Each stage has its own price. So if I were to say each stage was a $50 sale, they know that a 2.2 would be at $200. And that's how we talk when we describe what is assigned to a vehicle. And it's easy to then hand that piece of paper because I use carbon copies from the mechanic. So the mechanic, at the end of his mechanical inspection, he is determining, based on the triggers that we've taught him to look for, okay, I see dog hair, oh, I see cigarette hole burns, this is going to need interior work. He checks off what it's going to need, puts it on the diagram, and then that carbon copy eventually gets to the detailer. So that detailer, A, knows what tools he's going to need, B, knows how much this particular job is going to pay because they do get a flat rate pay at my dealerships, and also we know what to hold them accountable for. So when we go grade the work, we know that, okay, the mechanic caught a burn hole. Let me make sure you got that. there were scratches on the rear bumper. Let me make sure you got that, and we can hold them accountable. We also keep that for record for if the used car team ever wanted to know, why did I spend $300 of a detail on this car when the last one was $100? Well, let me show you what happened and what we did, etc. So it's great for accountability, and it's really great for speed, because when we used to just have to triage it, roll it in, and just kind of haul it around and figure out what was going on, that was just a huge time killer, non-value added time right there. Now it's just a progression, and we're more like an assembly line, which is how we were able to save. I think when I started, we were over 10 days, and this month was actually our best month right now. We're looking at maybe getting our first under 3-day month.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great. Well, thank you. That's fantastic. And it really sounds like your success is attributed to process and consistency.
Absolutely. Standards and processes, and I know I tend to be that, oh, he's got a new process out, and yeah, it's not always welcome, but people adopt it. And people tend to use it as a security blanket. And it's nice to fall back on that, because then it's yes or no, and it helps with discipline and helps with holding people to standard. Listen, detailer, this is what you're trained on. You're not meeting the standard, improve or discipline. Same thing with a mechanic. Listen, this car gets this price for this op code, for this labor rate. You can't change that. It's expected. It helps with our CPOV certification, because everything has its process. And once you kind of it takes a long time to get started. It's a few months, but once you get it going, it runs on autopilot. And then you can focus in where the bottlenecks are. And for me, the second key to my success would have to be interpreting the reports. I use Rapid Recon reports, the step report and the time to market, because because of the way I labeled out my steps, instead of assigning cars to people in Rapid Recon, I actually did to what the jobs are. So in any given month, I can tell you, man, this month we were about half a day longer in getting parts. Let me go talk to the parts director. Let's see what the holdup is. Let me dive deeper. And we're able to eliminate bottlenecks and predict what's going to be the next bottleneck. And our goal is to get even flow. Let's get the chaser more involved. Let's get more cars cleared so that we don't have 30 dropped on us at once. And the better we can get to even flow and reduce variation, then it's just a clean pipe that goes through an assembly line.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes.
But,
Anthony, the answer was 57% of people sublet their cosmetic reconditioning to a vendor that comes. 31% have cosmetic technicians that work on site, and 11% have cosmetic reconditioning company on site during business.
11%. Wow, that's a bigger number than I thought it was. Wow. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting that up. That's wonderful. Next on my list, Gary from McDonald's. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Good. So McDonald's, you guys are completely centralized. You got a standalone recon center like Anthony, right? And it's got an Audi and a Mazda, Honda, Volvo, Volkswagen, all feed in one location.
That's correct.
So go ahead.
What we did is, quite a few years ago, actually Michael was kind of ahead of this swing, and he had a body shop, and so he had some room that was down there, and he started putting the reconditioning down there. The unfortunate part is they didn't, at that time, put as much value on it as I believe it needed, and so they were working from a spreadsheet. They couldn't keep track of cars. They were shuttling them back and forth, and it really became a big hassle within the company. A little over a year ago, he realized that this has gotten to be a very important part of where we were headed for the future. And I have to give credit because I flew out a little over a year ago and met with Jared and Ralph at Reichert, and unfortunately it was 15 below zero while I was visiting. But their setup there is exactly what people should look at, and the philosophy that he had implemented, and it was only, 3 years before that. But by centralizing everything is a huge cost savings. And I know that people don't think that, but because we just spent over $4 million on a new building that's off-site. But when you look at having the space in each of those franchises, the equipment in each of those franchises, the employees that are up there, and then getting back to what you're saying, those employees then aren't able to focus only on the used car reconditioning. They're getting pulled in different directions depending on what's needed. It really, really is cheaper in the long run and better and easier to get the cars running through. When we put in Rapid Recon and started following through using processes, putting those in place,
we were at about 19 days when we took over, and right now we're down to about 6, but we've only been in our new building for 90 days. So we've had to put on new employees, and we're having to change the processes that we were using even before we got into here. So we do everything here, when we're clocking it, we do the windshields, the tires, the bumpers, odor, PDR, photo, interiors. We do everything E-test in this state. We do everything before it goes to the front line.
So you're doing glass in-house?
We do most of our stuff in-house. Like we have our own PDR department that's in here, our own photo department. So like glass, we'll have vendors come here, but we're counting that on our clock. We have wheel repairs that come in here because we have a lot of potholes and we'll get bent rims. So we do have a couple of vendors that come to our property, and we're trying to even bring more of those in-house. We have 2 PDR gentlemen, and we have 1 more that we're training right now, and he's going to start after the first of the year. We have 2 photo department. We have a carousel, and so we do that in-house. We print our own stickers in-house. I would say that the biggest hassle is our dealers. 3 miles doesn't sound like a lot, but our dealerships are 3 miles away, and getting them to get the cars to us and getting the cars back to them creates a lot of issues, especially, like last week, we had 2 days when it didn't get much above 10 degrees, and then we had snow. So, those are the things that we deal with depending on the time of the year. But I believe the big thing is that we're able to have a much more standardized product because we're in control of it. If you have 5 dealerships such as us, and each place is doing their own QCs or inspections, there's going to be differences. There's going to be outside pressures from that GM to maybe, hey, I own this car for too much. I need you to do this or slide this. We're able to take an asset, bring it in here, recondition it to Mr. McDonald standards, and give it back to them as an improved asset. We're able to focus on the cars that are coming in here without the interruptions. We're able to keep the factory-trained technicians at the dealerships doing what it is that they're best at. Our staff is always thinking about turn, days. I mean, we track everything in days, and I think that's the biggest philosophy difference that people have to do. Every minute, every day, how many can we get out today? That's not good enough. Where do we have 2 more? So we work on that all the time, and every night we send out an email that states how many cars are done, how many we did for the day, and what's here to be picked up. A dedicated parts department. They're always looking for the best value. It isn't necessarily the cheapest part. I pay for overnight mail at the drop of a hat because when I'm talking about $20, $30, $40, and I'm saving 2, 3, 4, 5 days, that's money well spent in the scheme of things.
When do you order glass? I mean, so obviously, if they have to bring something in like that, are you capturing that right up front so that there's not a lot of delay there, or when is that actually happening?
Yeah, so when we check in our cars out on the lot, we're making sure that we're looking for as much as we can see just on that check-in. In other words, if the interior's got a rip in it, the console, the rims, we check for owner's manuals, floor mats, the windshield. So as soon as we come in and write that car up immediately, unless we are leery if it's going to be a wholesale piece possibly, we're going to put that on order. Worst case scenario is we cancel it. We also have an agreement set up with Abra Auto Glass, which is local to here, is that we have a set price unless it starts to get involved with cameras and things like that. So even if because we do so many windshields in the state of Colorado, we don't use salt here and sand, we use crushed granite and mag chloride. So we don't have rust like a lot of the Midwest people do, but we have chrome that stains, mag chloride stains, but we don't have rust on our cars. You can take a 1990 Buick Regal and bring it in here and knock off the rear shock without getting a torch out or an air chisel or a die grinder. So those are some of the advantages that are in there, but our windshield's pit, so we do a lot of windshields, so we negotiate a price. So even if it goes to wholesale, it's an advantage.
Okay.
We also have, we work with the retail lot processes in one place, self-approvals, kind of like Reichert says, they have an amount set on it. We're working towards that. We're gathering data now so we can put those numbers together. But we're approving for 3 of our franchises, anything mechanical under $750, I can go ahead and approve it. With our Audi dealership and our Volvo, it's $1,000. So they said, okay, go ahead and approve it, and that doesn't include tires.
those are some of the things that we have. It really frees up the used car manager to do his job and to not worry about the reconditioning. So we take all of that on, and he can do his pricing and worry about those other things. And I think the big thing is, Richard Brenton said, time is the new money, and I think that's what everybody here is talking about.
Great. Well, thank you. It looks like we got another poll going.
Yes, we've got another poll going, and right now we have 35% of people say yes, they do have a centralized reconditioning center separate from the dealership. And, well, now it's 41% yes, 59% no. Go ahead and close that one.
Great. And I think that, that wraps up at least the speaking points from our panel, but we want to open it up to questions. Brian, I can't see the questions. I wonder if you can help me out there a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Let's see here. We've got a whole bunch of them in here. How do you keep from these employees you train and invest in to do recon from leaving when they think they know how to do it and start their own business? Anybody want to take that one?
I'll take that one. We have a PDR person here who was out in the field, and we've made him understand that there's some advantages here, and he sees that when he can come into work every day and he doesn't have to hop in a truck and go walk lots and try to come up with his work, he realizes that we don't pay quite as much as he was making percentage-wise out there, but when you take away the driving the vehicle, the gas that he was doing, and the time that he was wasting doing all that, he is actually netting more money here. So that's just one of our people that we have and the way he thinks of it.
He makes his money easier. He shows up, he doesn't work, he goes home.
Nice. Now, do cars, and this is probably a yes or no for all you guys, do cars only go online when it goes to the front line?
The answer at Reichert Automotive is we take the initial photos of the vehicle when it's at our intake process. So as soon as it comes off the transport truck, or as soon as it's traded in, we take 6 initial photos before we even put it through the reconditioning process. It just shows that we have the car. Because unless you have pictures of it, people don't believe that you even have the vehicle. Now, once it's done with reconditioning, we take the 26 photos of it looking perfect, but the initial 6 photos is the day that we get the vehicle. And we know we're going to retail it.
Yeah, we do the exact same way. It's much more beneficial. The only con to that is on occasion we'll sell out of our process because someone came in on that picture and the timing was just there that it hasn't made it through our shop yet. So at times we might lose some work because that's how the sales department sold it. But that just incentivizes us to work faster.
All right. There's a couple questions on here that Rob, your question about will we be covering the use and benefits of the software app, the answer to that is no. But we can definitely get you, I can definitely have somebody get in touch with you. If you want to just shoot me an email, it's brian@autosuccessonline.com. And Rob, I can definitely have somebody get in touch with you to show you that with the instant RO approval feature. And then Todd, your question about thoughts on flat rate, I believe that we covered that pretty well in Jared's segment. So I'm gonna forego that one. If we didn't get everything that you wanted, type in another question. Let's see. I would like to know the inventory each representative speaker's dealership group sells in relation to their pre-owned inventory that is represented online, i.e. we sell 300 a month of our 467 cars online. Anybody want to field that one?
So is your total sales or online?
I think he's asking, what percentage of if you got 100 cars online, how many would you sell? So if you sold 50, you're 50% of inventory turn per month. Does anybody know that stat right offhand?
We carry about 800 and sell about 500.
We carry about 1,000 to between 1,000 and 1,100. We sell between 750 and 800.
I think what he was asking was how many of those sales are generated from e-commerce versus people walking into the store.
I've been sure to say it's 95%.
Wow, 95%. Wow.
I don't know. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I know it's a lot. Everybody shops online. Hardly the customer that walks in the door, they say that they didn't do any research, but everybody knows that A customer spends 8 hours, last I saw, at least 8 hours searching online before they walk in. And they have a picture of their vehicle printed off in their pocket, and they act like they've never seen it before.
And they have a trade valuation also.
Yeah.
And a number.
How do you handle a CPO recon? Are the techs certified in each brand?
Yes.
Yeah.
Our manufacturers dictate they have to be certified at a certain level in order to put their name on the certification paperwork.
Yeah, we have to have the techs at a certain level, like he said, and also the management who does the final sign-off. They have to be certified as well.
We have a third-party CPO called Motor Trend, and we don't have to pay the manufacturer all their fees.
Who is that, Jared?
Yeah, it's Jared Reichert. So Reichert Automotive, we sell Motor Trend. It's a third-party CPO, but we don't. The amount of fees that we pay is half as much as we'd have to pay the manufacturer to CPO.
Interesting.
All right. Besides oil filters, do any of you stock? Oh, okay.
Let me ask a question. So are you selling that as a Reichert branded CPO?
It's considered a Motor Trend CPO. It's certified pre-owned. It's a third-party certified pre-owned.
But how does that work with the manufacturers?
We don't sell. We hardly ever sell any manufacturer CPOs just because the cost to sell it is a lot. So
Interesting.
we just went with a third party. It's called Motor Trend. It's through Easy Care.
Right.
Interesting. We've got some more questions there, Brian.
Yeah. They're coming in. They're still coming in. Besides oil filters, do any of you stock any aftermarket parts?
We stock air filters, brake pads, and rotors.
Yeah, we do the same. We also, along with our own parts liaison to the main parts department, I actually have an outside vendor co-located with us, Advanced Auto, so they can have their drivers send it to us even faster if we don't have it in stock, either locally or at the main warehouse.
So you have like an aftermarket parts counterman that works for the aftermarket company on site. That's full time.
Yes. Yes, that works with. Now they have to answer to the parts department. So through the parts department, they'll get the purchase order to get what they need. But that was another thing that we did to speed up time, to avoid having to wait for something to be shipped from a depot. And if we can get it right away, then my parts department will pay the local liaison assigned to us every day. It's the same woman from Advanced Auto to get it for us from her local 2 or 3 stores in the network.
Great. That's great.
All right, this question is for Jason. What percentage of vehicles should be under 30 days old, and how does Recon affect your ability to accomplish that?
Again, if you just sell 60–70% fresh, you need to be carrying that. Really, what I've found over the years is a metric that basically, anytime that middle bucket, 30 to 60 days old, exceeds 25% and starts going to 30% and 40%, it can lead to an age issue if you don't start selling those cars outright. I could show you trend after trend and market after market, don't matter the store. So that's my key, 25% in that middle bucket or less, and then of course less than 10% age. That leaves about 65% fresh. And so you can have the inventory sitting there and looking good, but if you're selling 40% fresh or 30% fresh and 40% middle and another 10 or 15 in the age bucket, you're really not maximizing gross. So that's where turnaround time comes in. Why are we only selling 30 or 40% fresh? Did it take too long to get the car online, get a photo, price, description, get it lot ready? And most of the times that's the issue. And where dealers go through a bunch of phases too. They'll get cleaned up and then they get sloppy, then they clean up and then they get aged and they clean up. And some of that could just be, oh, my photo guy got sick for a week, or my parts guy or my turnaround guy, my detail guy was gone and we couldn't get the cars done, and now we're a week off getting caught up, and then that week off can throw you off for a whole month. But again, any dealership, I would say, have that 25% in 30 to 60 or less, and of course age 10% or less, and then that forces you to focus on that fresh stuff and work your way backwards into making sure that the rest of the stuff's falling in place.
right. How are your recon techs paid? Flat rate?
All of our techs are paid flat rate at Reichert Automotive.
We actually switched ours because Michael didn't want the sales staff, management staff, I guess as you would say, thinking that they had a vested interest in putting things on the car that wasn't needed. So we've switched and everybody's paid hourly or salary now in our shop.
Wow.
My mechanics and detailers are both flat rate. Admin is salary with cycle time bonus structure.
All right. And actually this one says, how many of you have specific preset amounts you'll allow your advisors to put on the cars?
We do. Like I said, it's 700 for 3 of our franchises and 1,000 for the others.
I know Jared does, right? He's covered that.
Yeah, does anybody not do that?
I have 2 stores, and I have one store that does and the other that doesn't. One has a threshold of around $800. The other wants to see the entire estimate before approval.
And what's the difference between those 2 stores? And I mean, is one outperform another, or one turnaround time quicker?
One has cycle time more than the other. But they have a higher volume. So the one that requires the approval, they actually obviously would have a higher cycle time because it lives in that non-value added step for a little bit longer. But because they're looking at everything, I actually tend to sell more for them, and will tend to negotiate a lot more before the quick draw to send it to the auction type of beat-up cars.
So Anthony, are those 2 stores similar in brand, like Volkswagen and and maybe another import brand where you could
No. My 2 stores are Ford and then a Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep.
Okay, so they're similar in the sense that they're both domestic.
Yes.
So let's ask you this: hours per RO. I mean, so the store that looks at all of the approvals before they approve it versus the store that has the the threshold. Is it costing the store that has the threshold more money than the store that's reviewing everything line by line and taking more time?
I believe it does, but they've structured their department. For example, the one that requires a little bit more hands-on and wants to see the estimates more, that store has a larger number of management team. And because of that larger management team, then they are able to desk more deals at the same time. So their justification for that is we've got the manpower at the desk to spend the time. So it's not significant. It's not like I'm waiting days, but it is nice to be able just to throw a car through and not even have to take it out of the bay. And that's a great freedom for, and I've been pushing to have that threshold of, $800 or whatnot, because there's so many cars that don't need a lot of work, and that would just, again, increase cycle time. And I've compared it, but it's just a preference of the used car department. Hopefully, eventually, I can show them the numbers.
So if you have an $800 threshold, how often do you end up with an $800 bill?
Oh, you know what? Well, not even that high. I mean, usually the ones that fall under that threshold are your $400 or $500 bills.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's my question.
Yeah.
All right. This one is for those of you who have multi-store operations. How often do you transfer a vehicle to another store that may have a better market for that specific vehicle? For instance, would you market a BMW on a Kia lot or move it to an import store?
In our company, they do that at time of trade. They'll buy bid if the Volkswagen trades for an Audi. They don't want it. They'll contact the Audi store to see if they'll do the buy bid on the car. But usually by the time we get them down here, it belongs to a store and it's going to stay.
Ours are triggered off time on my lot.
Yeah, same. We trigger at days in inventory and then shift them to where they may have a better opportunity for a period of time, and then they're gone.
Okay.
All right. Does everyone do fence walks?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Trade walks?
Hey, can I interrupt? I'm sorry, I have to leave the webinar, but I just want to say thank you very much. This is Jared Reich with the Record Automotive. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And if you guys need anything, just follow up with me at jaredreichert@record.com. And thank you again very much.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I can define as fence walk. Our guy asking the question has defined a little better. Fence walk, tech inspection, fence walk, used car manager, recon manager, body shop, PDR tech to compile a grand total dollar amount to spend.
We have several systems that do it.
Go ahead.
They call it trade walk, and they do it first thing every morning. The cars are staged in one place, and the used car manager, the inventory manager, whoever the contact is in service, whether it be an ASM or a recon mechanic and a cosmetic person, walk the cars and designate what needs to be done, pre-approve things, and it just, in those stories, it does speed up the process.
We used to have that done on every single car, not counting the original appraisal, a time of trade-in. And what we did was we tried to limit the number of cars going through that. So we actually created a step and wrap recon called the walk around. So when a used car manager was looking at an estimate and wants to justify or validate something that we caught, or is it worth it, that type of thing, that car will almost be pulled out of the assembly line off to the side to where we can get everybody together. And it's usually the used car director, the chaser, and a representative from reconditioning. And that's sped us up a lot, because now we're talking 30 cars a month instead of the 300.
At our dealership, all of the cars are sent down. We do a walk around. They put in notes if they know that there's a lower end engine noise or if there's a couple of issues. Otherwise, we look them over, put together an estimate, and send them up, and they make their decision whether they're going to keep the car or not, and if so, what they're going to do to it.
Okay.
All right.
Well, do you have any,
I believe
questions there, Brian?
No, it looks like that's all the questions that we have today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for taking the time to share today. This has been one of the most educating webinars that we've had in a long time. I appreciate you guys taking the time, and I'm sure all the attendees do as well. For attendees, there were a couple questions that I wasn't quite sure what you were asking, and we're kind of out of time. So if you would like, please, if we didn't answer your question completely or in the right way, please send me an email to Brian, B-R-I-A-N, at AutoSuccessOnline.com. And if you happen to be driving right now, you're going to get an email from me tomorrow thanking you for coming. Please send me those questions, and I'll get them to Anthony and make sure that, you know, if you have to have a conversation on the phone, you can have a conversation on the phone, and he'll get you the answers that you'd like to see. Anthony, before we go, is there anything that you would like to share with our guests before we let them go?
No, I'm absolutely great, and I thank you so much for all the attendees. I'm really surprised at how many people signed up, and hopefully there are 3 or 4 takeaways for every one of you. And oh, you know what? Let me mention this: if there's something that you want to share, we didn't give you a lot of opportunity to speak back. There's probably some things that you're doing in your stores that might be worth